Hello everyone, welcome to Coaster Hour, and for today's video, I'll be ranking all 9 coasters at California's Great America, as I have gotten the opportunity to ride all 9 of the operating coasters at Great America from 2 visits, one in 2013 and one in 2019. And so with that said, let's get on with the countdown. Starting off the list is the Intamin Family Coaster Woodstock Express, and I was only able to ride this coaster once in 2013, and this is not a good family coaster at all. From what I remember, the restraints were very uncomfortable and the cars felt quite cramped, and combine that with a dull layout consisting of a boring gradual drop and some turns, and this coaster is one that I don't think I'll ever need to ride again. At number 8, I have Lucy's Crabbies, and this is just an E&F Miler kiddie coaster, but this ride is just fine for being a kiddie coaster, though the seats do feel cramped if you are above the max height requirement to ride alone. I rode this once in 2013 with my little brother, and I remember this coaster feeling relatively tame and simple, which is pretty normal for a kiddie coaster. Number 7 is actually quite possibly the most pointless wooden coaster ever built, Grizzly. And I almost put this right at number 8 because Grizzly is just extremely bland and unexciting. There's no airtime or lateral forces to be found on this coaster, making Grizzly shockingly tame and boring. Really, only the shakiness of Grizzly is keeping me from falling asleep while riding this thing. And I would say that this could be an okay family coaster, but the height requirement is 48 inches. So that means that this ride was meant to be very thrilling, so I can't even say that. Grizzly is a coaster you ride once for the credit and just move on from afterwards. Psycho Mouse comes in at number 6, and this is one of the few Aero Wild Mouse coasters out there, and Psycho Mouse is actually a decent ride. There are a few brief moments of airtime and some solid forces on the turns, and the ride is pretty smooth, also which makes Psycho Mouse a nice supporting family coaster, even though Wild Mouse coasters can be found at many other parks around the world. The classic Aero Looper Demon comes in at number 5, and this coaster was the first to feature foreign versions, and it has not aged the best. Demon is now pretty rough, and the layout definitely feels outdated, but I still found the vertical loops and corkscrews to be quite intense, and because of its age, I do respect this coaster and I can tolerate the roughness, so to me this coaster is quite decent and somewhat fun. At number 4, I have Patriot, the B&M floorless coaster, and the vertical loop and corkscrew found on this ride are intense and solid inversions overall. Besides that, Patriot is just an okay ride. You definitely can tell that Patriot was one of the first B&M coasters ever built, and it really isn't super intense or paced real well, but for what it is, Patriot is a solid supporting coaster, and it is also relatively smooth, and the decision to convert Vortex into a floorless was fantastic because Vortex was pretty awful as a stand-up coaster, and now Patriot is at least an enjoyable ride. The top 3 coasters at California's Great America is pretty strong, and beginning in that top 3 is the old school classic B&M invert flight deck, and this invert is just non-stop action throughout its entire duration as you go right from one element to the next, and even though this ride is short, it still definitely packs a punch. My 2 favorite elements are the 0G roll and the final helix going over the lake. As much as I like this coaster though, I will admit that it is a bit rough, which did affect where I put it in my overall rankings, which you'll see toward the end of the year. But despite that, Flight Deck is a coaster you won't want to miss when you visit Great America. Gold Striker is my number 2 coaster at the park, and I just think this ride is fantastic. The first drop inside the tunnel is awesome, the airtime moments are just incredible, and Gold Striker also has some powerful lateral forces, so this ride really is spectacular in the whole package. Unfortunately though, Gold Striker wasn't as smooth as I remembered, and it did hinder my back row ride, but I thought the front row was the way to go with Gold Striker, as it gave the smoothest ride, but I still got some level of roughness that actually added to the intensity without being too much of a distraction. Gold Striker did fall in my overall rankings, but I think when I get more rides on it, it'll rise in my rankings, but overall, Gold Striker is an exceptional wooden coaster. My number 1 coaster at California's Great America, as well as my favorite coaster in all of Northern California, is without a doubt Railblazer, the RMC Raptor that has the absolute best pacing of any coaster I've ridden, and also some of the strongest airtime you'll find on any coaster. My favorite moments on Railblazer include the first drop, which you just get absolutely ejected in the back row. The dive loop, you get some airtime entering the loop, and then the inversion is very intense. The off-axis airtime hill, that is the strongest moment of airtime on the entire ride. And the drop off of 2 turns, which also delivers some strong airtime. If you want a more in-depth review on the Railblazer from me, I've already made a separate video review that I'll leave a link to in the description, which goes into more detail, but in short, Railblazer is an intense airtime-filled ride that just zooms straight through its layout, and even though Railblazer is short, it is a ride that I'll never forget. And that is my ranking of the coasters at California's Great America. Do you agree or disagree with my list? Put your opinions down in the comments, and I'll see you all next time here on Coaster Hour.